All right. Okay, I'm gonna wait before I start because again, I don't want my stuff to get cut off. Um, do, 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 do. I think we're live. I think there's sound. Okay, I think we're good. Let's get going. All right. Um, Welcome to the podcast. Um, what up, Black man? Welcome to the Beneficial Black Man podcast, where we journey together to overcome mediocrity and become beneficial for our community by sharing lessons from the highs and lows of life. I'm your host, Jamal Calpin. Hopefully, you're doing well, Black man. I hope you're doing well. Hopefully, you're protecting your mental, finding time for an emotional release valve, and continuing to strive to become beneficial. I think so. I've been live streaming a lot of maybe like the past 10 episodes or whatever. I think I'm going to stop doing that just because I think if I pre-record it, the quality of the message and the content and stuff will be better. I'm still going to live stream on the channel though. I think moving forward, I'm going to live stream like my study hall sessions when I'm responding and reviewing videos, and I don't know, maybe like Q&As or something like that. But for the podcast, I think it'll be more effective and better for you all if I do pre-recorded stuff so I can have all the thoughts and the ideas and all the things there together. But it's still going to be the same format, the mental check-in, and then what did I learn from this week and what advice would I give? So let's get started with the mental check-in. Before I get started, I'm gonna do a I'm gonna do like a breathing exercise, so that I can be relaxed and more present. Sometimes when I'm doing this kind of stuff, or just throughout the day, sometimes I can be anxious and my anxiety will kick up, and so it requires that I do some breathing to calm down and be okay. Because it can be real easy to get stressed. It can be real easy to get stressed day to day, and so sometimes you just need a moment to just breathe. So I'm gonna do a quick breathing exercise and like a shakeout exercise. And I'm sorry, I probably should have did all this before I went live, but I don't know. Maybe this will be helpful for somebody. But all right, well, I'm just gonna do 3 deep breaths. And we shake it out. Shake it out. This is what I do too for when I'm doing like voiceover work, or if I'm recording or acting or whatever. I do that too to get calm and kind of be present in my body. It's not only helpful for creative things and like acting or whatever, but it's also helpful in managing mental and emotional well-being. All right, so let's let's get into the sorry, all this pre-roll kind of stuff, but let's get into the podcast episode. All right, so the mental check-in. The high of the past week. I went on a trip to Mexico with my wife, which was really fun. Um, it became fun. It kind of started off kind of stressful. Uh, I think I talked about that. Talked about that in the last episode about dealing with pests in the place that we were staying. But we traveled to Mexico and it was really fun. It was nice to be able to have a little getaway, and I'm grateful for that. And that's something that I think is important for people. Like, you need to be able to have vacations. You need to pull away from the everyday somehow, whether it's for a week, whether it's for a day, whether it's for an afternoon or whatever. You need to have a break and disconnect so that you can actually rest and relax. So that was the high, being able to travel and come back and stuff like that safely. The flights were kind of rough. We had turbulence going there and coming back, but we're safe. It worked out. It was kind of uncomfortable. All right, in regards to the low of the week. All right. So I guess this is relevant since we are still celebrating 50 years of hip hop. The low of the week was listening to mumble rap. And all right, so the way that came up is like when I work out or when I exercise, sometimes I'll listen to music, and I was listening to a playlist, and it was like Christian hip hop or Christian rap or whatever, and I uh, I like rap, I like hip hop, some rap, some hip hop, but I don't think I can get with mumble rap. I just don't think I can. There's some songs that I appreciate the vibes and the production and stuff like that, but I keep trying. Maybe I don't fully grasp it, or maybe like I'm getting old, but I it just doesn't work for me. I keep trying and it doesn't do anything for me. And I mean, it also doesn't help when again, it makes me sound old that I don't understand what you're saying. And so even if I want to relate to the artist, like relate to the rapper, I can't because I don't know what you're saying. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a crotchety old man, but I, there are certain elements I think that are important in music uh, that work well to help you connect to the art form, to connect to any art really. And I think clarity is a big part of it. Clarity in the sense of like, no, it doesn't have to be super pristine, or like if you're mixing audio, it doesn't have to be all the way out on the front or whatever. Because there are different genres and subgenres of music that sometimes the vocals are pushed in the back and you can't really understand them. But I think that's different. I think that's different from not really being able to understand. Like it's not articulated. Like those don't sound like words. Like that doesn't sound like a sentence. It doesn't sound like a phrase. It just sounds like tones. But anyways, that's my low. I mean, if you have recommendations for, I guess, mumble rap, that's good, or that you like, let me know. It doesn't work for me. But anyways, moving on to creating. Recently I've been doing some video editing, personally, for personal projects, but also for clients. And I think that's creative. And there's definitely an art form to video editing and video production and stuff for anything, whether it's for YouTube or whether it's for business stuff or whatever. It's definitely an art form, and it's something I'm trying to learn and get better at. I have some skill in doing it, but with any skill, you can always improve. So, I mean, that's the mental check in. Something light, not too heavy. High, uh, vacation. Low, mumble rap, and then creating video editing. So, what did I learn from this week? Okay, so I have been making my way through Bell Hook's book, All About Love, and it's a really good book. I might be a little more than halfway through. It's a really good book, and I think it's really good in challenging our understanding, not just for men, but for all people, our understanding of what love is and how to actually be loving. And something that she mentions in the book is that very often we just assume how to love or what love is or whatever. And so in the book, she breaks down different aspects of love and what it is and how to be more loving and to people. So I would definitely recommend All About Love by Bell Hooks. It's a good book. And I think I think it's like part of a series of different books related around love. And so I have to look into that. But right now I'm working my way through it. Something that I've noticed though recently, from watching different videos and hearing people's experiences and thinking about my own self, is that we, particularly as men, I think we've tied so much value to money as an example of quality, truth, and even love. We as men, generally speaking, equate money to love and affection at times, and it's confusing and deceiving. And I think that's because we believe that the lie that time equals money. So in our relationships, we conclude if there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of love because we've invested a lot of time and energy into getting that resource. So because we've spent a lot of time earning money, we think when we give money away or we make purchases to like our significant other or whatever, that equates to love. And that's not true. I don't believe that. That's not true. And I think in doing that, it makes it difficult for us to relate in healthy relationships with other people. So whether it is a significant other or maybe like a friend or a family member or whatever, because we give money, we feel like that's a show of love. And that's not always true. A scripture that I wanted to reference real quick is Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. This is in the King James, and it reads, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." The reason I wanted to reference this scripture is because usually when we think about the heart, when we see it in scripture or whenever people talk about the heart, they think about love. And for a while, whenever I thought of that scripture, it was like, oh, okay, where your treasure is or where you invest your money and things like that, that is where your love is. That is where your affections and all those things are. And I think that can be partially true, but not fully true. So when I hear this kind of scripture, it's like, there will your heart be also. Just because you're investing a lot there doesn't mean that you actually love. Doesn't mean, in this case, doesn't necessarily mean that you love God. A lot of people donate to churches and into different like mercy ministries and stuff like that, but don't love God at all. Don't have a good relationship with the Most High at all. And the same with giving money in relationships. Like you're just pouring out with gifts and resources or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you love the person. And I think that's challenging because, again, as men, we have been told by the society and by this culture and by talking heads and people online that your value is equated to your money, how much money you have. Are you six figures and more? That means if you have that, if you have all this money, then that is your worth. And when we tie so much of our existence and everything about us and the things that we do to a resource like money or currency, like it's a commodity, I think we devalue ourselves and we miss the mark and how to actually show up and be beneficial for other people and how to love other people and even how to love ourselves. Um, Before I go further into my notes, I think it's important to try to define love. And so I'm going to reference how love is defined or described in scripture. And I'm also going to reference some quotes from Bell Hook's book, All About Love. So the first one we're going to look at is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which is like universally known as the love chapter in the Bible. And so it reads 1 Corinthians 13, reading from the English Standard Version. I'm reading verses 1 through 7. It reads, "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have a prophetic and if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love does not even boast, or doesn't. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And I like it in the King James version, but I read it in ESV because it's easier on the ears. In the King James version, it describes, instead of the word love, it says charity. And again, when we have a misunderstanding of what love is and we start to equate it with the wrong things, we miss even being able to live out this definition. Here, if you're a Christian or whatever, it doesn't say money at all on this thing. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And even in the first couple of verses before, when it's making the comparison, some of this, it's talking about spiritual gifts and other things like that. But even if you look at verse 3, it says, if I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. So even if you have all the money in the world and you give it away, that doesn't mean you love. That does not equate to that. Even if you sacrifice all yourself, it doesn't necessarily mean there's love there. And I think as men, we have been taught, again, the lie that time equals money, or that money equals our value, or that money itself, when we give it to other people or we invest by buying things for our significant others or whatever, that means we're loving. And even here, that's not true. That's a poor definition. It's a confusing definition and it's deceiving. And I think it's important that if we want to get better and if we want to be beneficial men, we have to better understand words. We have to better understand what is actually required to be beneficial. And I think being beneficial does require love. And it requires us to better understand ourselves and value ourselves accurately. So that's what it says here in scripture about love and defining love. Again, it's all these actions: being patient, being kind, not envying, not boasting, not being arrogant, not being rude, not insisting on your own way, not being irritable, not being resentful, not rejoicing at wrongdoing, but rejoicing with the truth, bearing all things, believing all things, hoping all things, enduring all things. Like, that's love. That's how you love. Those are examples of how you love. I'm going to pull up Kindle. But in All About Love by Bell Hooks, I'm going to read a couple of quotations from the book where she's talking about love. I'm just going to read this part. So this is from the first chapter. I don't think it says. Okay. The first chapter, chapter 1, clarity, give love words. And so this is from a section in that chapter. Echoing the work of Erich Fromm, he defines love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Explaining further, he continues, love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love, we choose to love. Since the choice must be made to nurture growth, this definition counters the more widely accepted assumption that we love instinctually. Let's see, I think there's couple other quotes. Another quote from the same chapter, same book. To truly love, we must learn to mix various ingredients: care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, and trust, as well as honest and open communication. Learning faulty definitions of love when we are quite young makes it difficult to be loving as we grow older. Let's see. There are a lot of good stuff in here. That might be the last one. I think that's the last one. Yeah, that's enough. But even in that definition, in a general summed up way, loving somebody or to love somebody is to help their ultimate spiritual growth for yourself and for other people. And it is not limited to romance. It's not limited to romantic relationships. You can love other people by wanting their benefiting them, making sure that there's good happening to them. That can be an action of love for their spiritual growth, for their whole self. And that can manifest in different ways. But again, when we confuse money with value and love, that gives us a faulty definition. And I was thinking about this past week because I've heard, as an example, okay, so I was listening to a podcast episode with Derek Jackson, and he was giving his, I guess, side of the story, related to his recent divorce and his marriage with his wife and stuff like that, right? Very often in the conversation and in the podcast and in the Discord, he kept mentioning how he would pay for stuff. He would pay to make sure the kids went to private school. It would pay that so his wife, Danae, I always get her name wrong, but that is his ex-wife at this point, I guess. Um, that she would have this and have that, and it always came down to money. A lot of his love, or what he wanted to prove that he was actually loving to his wife, was money. And I've thought about that for myself, in my relationships. It's like, oh, well, I've bought this or I've gotten this for somebody or whatever. And it's sad because when you ask the person that you want, or that you ask the person that you say that you're loving, and you ask them, hey, do you feel loved? Sometimes, at least in my experience, and I've heard this from other people too, but they'll be like, yeah, I appreciate all that other stuff, but no, I don't feel loved. And I think that creates like a malfunction within us as men, because we think that if I give you money or if I buy you this stuff, that equals me loving you, me caring for you, me and so and all this stuff. But it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. And I think why I've been thinking about that is because I don't want us to keep having this malfunction in our minds. And I also don't want us to think that that's the only way that we can be loving to other people is just by having money and buying stuff for people. Like, it's deeper than that. Like, even just focusing on Bell Hook's definition, to love is to help the benefit the spiritual growth of somebody else in some way, some shape or form, and that doesn't necessarily, that's not limited to money. And so, like, the big idea is, I feel like this concept of money equaling love, whether we say it or we believe it, obviously it exists within us. It exists within our community. And it's something that we are, I think, subconsciously taught, that is helping us to have really bad relationships and to also treat ourselves poorly. Like, just because you have money doesn't necessarily mean that you are beneficial. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy. It doesn't mean that you are loved or experiencing love. So whether given or received money, like, look how much I've done for you. Sometimes as men, I think we end up worshiping money and thinking that's what it makes. Like, that's what makes us a valuable person. That's what makes us a valuable man. Because again, in this consideration of a high value man, and a lot of the rhetoric that is mentioned within, the red pill community and manosphere and all that crap, like, a lot of it ties to money. It ties to money. It ties to our physical prowess. It ties to, how many, like our sexual conquests. It's all of these things that degrade our humanity and degrade our potential to actually serve people for their spiritual growth and their spiritual good and for their overarching good and for their benefit. It comes down to us. Like, I got all this money. I got this, all these toys. I got this nice house or nice car, or like I'm in peak shape or whatever. And, I've smashed a lot of girls. That's what makes me valuable. That's what makes me important. And it's a lousy barometer. It's a lousy way to gauge character and true value. Money is just one small aspect of life. It's a big aspect. Yeah, it means a lot. I mean, it's a useful tool. But if we continue to say something equals money, love equals money, value equals money, or whatever, we're going to get messed up. We're going to keep malfunctioning and keep being deceived. Like, even in recognizing other men, a lot of guys have looked up to Kevin Samuels, Andrew Tate, even Fresh and Fit, and their recent demise of their channel. A lot of it ties to money. These platforms and individuals, they're terrible investments. A lot of you see it, if you go to their shows or watch their podcasts or whatever, lots of super chats, lots of cash apps. People are investing in this stuff because like they think they're actually getting value from it. But it's kind of deception. But money and the appearance of success have blinded many people. Very often people looked up to Kevin Samuels because of the way he dressed, the way he talked. And I understand he would say stuff that could potentially encourage people or whatever, that, that saying that a broken clock can be right two times a day. That doesn't mean it was ultimately beneficial. It wasn't ultimately the things that were being said were ultimately for your spiritual growth, for your benefit, for you to become a better person. No. Many of these platforms don't instruct men on how to be loving or beneficial. They feed into broken egos and weak prides in exchange for love and support, which very often is your money. And so since you're investing and we have this belief that time equals money and then love equals money, we think we're given in. And so since I've given to this, that means the person coming to me loves me and then I love them. But they've convinced you that they were actually helping you. They don't help you to become better or beneficial. From what I've seen, it's usually giving you instruction in how to become more selfish and self-centered. We have to look beyond resources as a measuring stick of a man, because a man can have all the resources in the world and be a devil, have all the riches in the world and lose his soul, have all the money in the world and be a fool, have all the money in the world and not know how to love. Nothing about, if you hear these stories about people who are children of millionaires and billionaires and stuff, trust fund babies or whatever, and later in life, as they grow up, they talk about, yeah, I didn't have a good connection with my parents. I didn't have a good connection with my dad. I never felt loved. I never felt anything. Yeah, I had this money. I can go out and buy stuff, but I didn't feel love. So that's some more examples of how love does not equal money. But again, we subconsciously, I believe, we equate that, because I have this understanding that for me to acquire this money, to acquire these resources, and I've put in this time and this energy, this blood, sweat, and tears to accumulate all this wealth, and now I give it to you, or accumulate all these resources. Now I give it to you so I can buy you cars, buy you nice stuff, or whatever. That means I love you. But that's not always the truth, even for ourselves. Oh yeah, I got all this money and I bought these nice shoes. I got this nice car. I got this nice haircut, whatever. I got all this stuff. So that means I love myself. That's not necessarily the case. You can have all these flashy things. You can have all this stuff, but still be spiritually dead on the inside, still be broken on the inside, still be mentally and emotionally sick. You can still be in a broken place, but just because you've invested and spent money, you think you've loved yourself or you've loved others. That's not always true. See, the thing is, reference another scripture is First Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. Here, First Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. A lot of people have heard this scripture and also misquote it. Most people say, what is it? For the love of money. I forget how people say it, but the scripture says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. I forget how people say it now because I keep reading the scripture. For the love of money. Anyways, people often reference the scripture or whatever, and they talk about it in regards to people being rich or being wealthy or whatever. And I like the way Myron Golden, you can look him up. I think he's a really fantastic content creator that shares a lot of helpful information, especially around money. But he did a breakdown of the scripture a couple of times. And he was like, for the love of money, what's really being said here is from the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So because people love money, they do all kinds of evil things. And even here, this word love, when you look up like in the Greek or whatever, this phrase, love of money, it actually is, and let me pull that up. We can just do it here. Dictionary.com. It's actually the word avarice. Let me see if I spell it right. Yep. Yes. So when it says it, this is what put this in the place. So from reading the scripture, right? For the insatiable greed for riches, inordinate miserly desire to gain and hoard wealth. So 4, insatiable greed for riches and miserly desire to gain and hoard wealth. That is the root of all kinds of evil. I think, breaking it down that way and having the understanding gives a little bit more clarity to what's going on there. And why do I bring that up? Because honestly, I believe a big part, and a very evil thing that's happening on the internet and online, and in our society currently, is there's a lot of deception. A lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of our brothers are being deceived by these red pill and by these manosphere platforms, because those individuals, the content creators or whatever, have a love for money. They have a love for money. And they're willing to say all kinds of stuff just to get it. So they're willing to say misogynistic things. They're willing to say racist things. They're willing to say misogynistic things. They're willing to insult you, to make you feel stupid, to not actually pour into you, to actually make you get better, to give you terrible advice that ruins relationships, that forces women to be in subjugation to toxic men, to continue to uphold toxic and patriarchal concepts and beliefs that are ruining our culture, ruining our community, ruining our society. They're willing to say whatever just to make money. And that stems from that avarice. It stems from that love of money. And when we, again, are deceived and think, oh, this man is saying all this stuff and it's actually helpful for me, this is the truth, so on and so forth, we're being deceived because of somebody's love of money. And it's messing us up, it's breaking us up, it's messing up our communities, messing up us as men, because we keep believing these lies, like love equals money. So the more money you have, the more love you deserve, the more love you can give, all that stuff. It's a lie. And that's what I've been thinking about this week. And like with the demise of these platforms and many men in our society, these are all examples and warnings to heed, not to model ourselves after. They are to show us that our manhood, our masculinity, and our humanity is deeper and more valuable than money. Resources are important. Don't get me wrong. Even in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes, I believe it says, money answereth all things. You can use money to do a lot of stuff. It's true. But resources are important, but character, being beneficial, and learning how to love are of greater value. So yeah, like I would say, what advice would I give? The advice that I would give is learn to use money to be beneficial and love others. And that's important because we have to understand what love is. And that goes back to 1 Corinthians 13. Like, how can you use money to be more patient? How can you use money to help with, I'm referencing bell hooks. How can you use money to help with the spiritual growth of other people? How can you use money for your own spiritual growth so that you become beneficial? That can be buying things. That can be getting therapy. All money is a tool. But when we equate a tool to a bigger concept, if we equate a tool to time, if we equate a tool to love, if we equate tool to a particular value, we're all messed up. We're misguided and we're being deceived. So my advice is to learn to use money to be beneficial and love others. It's just a tool. It doesn't equal love. Using our life treasures, which, I deem these are things that we have in our life, treasures, things that are valuable in our life that we can use to live for glory and for good, is time, resources, and energy. These are limited things. So we have a limited amount of time, we have a limited amount of resources, and we have a limited amount of energy day to day. But we use these things to serve others. Like, using those things to serve others is admirable, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are loving or that you love someone. Just because you buy somebody a new car, or you buy somebody a gift, it doesn't necessarily mean that you love them. It's deeper than that. It's more complex than that. You have to be intentional about actually benefiting others. Again, tying that stuff together that we saw in 1 Corinthians 13, looking at, the definition that I shared from Bell Hooks about focusing on the spiritual growth of yourself or another person. Like, it's deeper. It's not just limited to only care and affection or gifts or things like that, or romance. It's deeper than that. And so, yeah, that would be the advice I would give. There's this podcast that my wife and I used to listen to called The Minimalist. And one thing that they would say is learn to use things. Learn to use things. Learn to use things and love people. Don't love things and use people. Right. Because very often people would love things more than they actually love or care about or, benefit other people. They would love things. Things include money. Love things more than people themselves. And so, no, yeah, I would encourage you with this. I'm encouraging myself too, having my paradigm shifted about like, okay, even if I have money, even if I had all the money in the world, that doesn't necessarily mean that I love myself well. Doesn't necessarily mean that I love my wife well. Doesn't mean that I love my brother as well. Doesn't mean that I love my family or my community well. Doesn't mean that. But I can use these things. I can use these resources. I can use this wealth to serve other people. Yeah, I would, I want to leave you with that and encourage you, Black man, to keep striving to become beneficial. And us reorienting our understanding of these concepts in life helps us to do that. I will challenge you to go and watch the video that I made on the channel, how to become a beneficial man. I think that'll help you to continue on this journey that we're on, to become beneficial. But thank you for watching the podcast episode. Again, I don't think I'm going to go live on the podcast anymore, but I will be going live at other times and with different topics in the future. But I think it'll be better conducive to serving you all if I like pre-record and pre-produce the podcast. But thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts about love and money. Do you think love equals money? And if so, why? And do you agree with me that love doesn't equal money, that it's more complex than that, and that maybe we have been like deceived, whether it's overtly or covertly, to think that, oh, if I'm buying you a lot of stuff, if I'm investing, because you hear the stories of guys who go on dates, which is crazy. It's a whole other thing of like entitlement and gross disregard of women. But, I went on this date, I hundreds of dollars, I flew this girl out, So now, I deserve to get sex. I deserve to get, whatever I want from her. No, that's transactional. That's messed up. And that is not love. But, again, if you're equating love to money, that in itself is, you think love is transactional, and that's not how that works. That's a lie. We've been deceived to think love is transactional in that way. That's a whole other thing. And we need to unlearn that stuff. We need to get rid of that. We need to tear down those strongholds and those imaginations that are keeping us from being beneficial and keeping us from living for glory and for good. But all right, yeah, check out the video, How to Become a Beneficial Man, and keep growing. Keep going on this journey to become beneficial. Black man, you're called for more than mediocre living. You're here for a purpose, to live for glory and for good. Protect your mental, make time for an emotional release valve, and keep striving to become beneficial. I believe in you. Go make something for yourself, make something of yourself, and make something for glory and for good. I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Yo, I realize life can feel like trash sometimes. It's like you keep catching L after L, and nothing you do seems to make life any better. I've been there. Disappointed, frustrated, tired, beat down, just feel like giving up. What I've learned is that all you need to make it through the ups and downs of life is just a little bit of help. So I want to share with you the tools that I've learned to turn my bad days into good days. These simple pieces of wisdom have changed my life, and I know they'll change your life too. So go get a copy of my new book, Make Bad Days Good, a set of simple tools to take control of your life, on Amazon today. Listen, things can get better. Peace.